Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Blue Maxima, and I'm here taking a look at some PlayStation Mobile titles. As we all know, the PlayStation Mobile service is shutting down in a week and a half, or at the very least you won't be able to buy any new games within the next week and a half. So I'm just going to go through and talk about some of the games that I've played previously that I really liked, and I think that people should at least try and get some of them before they go off the store. It's a bit of a disappointment, really. I wish I could have got this done sooner, but my health hasn't been fantastic lately, and there's been a bunch of different games. Now, here's the deal. This video is going to be mostly unscripted, including this intro bit, because I'm not going to be able to script 25 games worth of stuff. I'm not scripting that much. No freaking way. So this is going to be a bit off the cuff. I'm going to have video footage of older videos, and I've also recorded some newer footage for those games that I recorded with my phone camera and looked absolutely terrible back in the day. But I've just recorded new footage of that for you, so you don't have to sit through the terrible camera work that I used to do then. There are some games that I would put on this list that I definitely didn't because of one particular reason, that they have more better versions, like more enhanced versions on the Vita native store. So you won't be seeing Future Labs Surge, you won't be seeing OMG Zombies, you won't be seeing the Tiki Pod games, stuff like that. So if there's a game that's missing off this list, it might be because there's a Vita native version. However, there are two games that I'm going to be talking about that are going to be versions that actually have versions of native to the Vita, but they are actually better on PlayStation Mobile, so I've put them in here because of that reason. So, without further ado, let's get right down to it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, this is how it's going to work. So, this is the way the games are ordered. It starts at the very top of the PlayStation Mobile store in the games section. So, we'll start from action, and as we go on, we'll go through each of the categories, so you can go through and scroll through the entire store while I go and talk about these particular games. So if there's anything there that catches your eye, it might actually be worth taking a look at. You never know, because considering the service is going to go down in a week, you're probably going to want to purchase everything now. Everything I've listed here will also be on the screen. The names will be on the screen, the category they're under, and the price. Thankfully, everything here will be nice and cheap, so you should be able to get everything here for like $50, or at least what you're interested in. But however, there are a couple of people you should avoid, including Tsoft, who tend to make absolutely the same game every single time they release it, and BP, who overcharge and leave absolutely bloody nothing for it. So yeah, we'll just get started from the very top of the action category. Instant Dungeon. Now, I'm going to put a little bit of a disclaimer here. I actually worked on this game. The mode Maximum Mash is actually something I personally designed and the guy put in the game. But the idea of this one is that you go through these somewhat procedurally generated mazes, collecting as much gold as you possibly can, avoiding enemies, getting weird pickups, and getting to the exit, and every few stages you have a boss level, which works about the same way, except that the bosses are usually undefeatable. For a 5-minute score attack thing, it's actually pretty good, because you die instantly if you touch something, so the game remains fast-paced, and you have to be constantly weaving away around the maze while trying to find just what the bloody hell you're supposed to do. And there's plenty of unlockable modes as the game goes along as well, so you can definitely get a couple hours of enjoyment out of it, and it's quite cheap as well, so totally recommended, despite the fact that I actually worked on it. I mean, that's kind of obvious, but you know, having a game that I worked on be on the Vita is actually pretty damn neat. So, ShellQuest 2000. This is a game by Thomas Hopper, and there are 2 games of his on this list, but he's made about 9 or 10? I can't remember, it might even be like a dozen or something. He made a lot. But thankfully, he was actually one of the people that actually put some effort into his game, so pretty much anything he made with his name on it is actually something you should look at, or at least while you're scrolling through the store. But this is ShellQuest 2000, and I like this one a lot. It's a vertical shooter, but at the same time, it's kind of a sort of resource gathering game, as every ship and every little resource you pick up throughout the stages, you actually put towards crafting new components for your ship, which is actually a pretty nice little thing, because it keeps the game going and you get a decent upgrade chain going, and it's pretty engaging, honestly. I quite enjoyed it a bit. And the best part about it is that the game is actually a free trial. All of Thomas Hopper's games went down to like 50 cents or something. I don't know if that applies to this in-game unlock, but either way, it's well worth at least getting it and trying it out, because hey, it's free. Tokyo Jungle Mobile, one of the most expensive games on this list, But basically, it's a trimmed down version of what you saw on the PlayStation 3. It's an isometric turn-based combat gathering survival game where you go through the ruins of Tokyo, you fight monsters, you have babies, you continue your generation as far down as you possibly can before you die, and then at the end you get a bunch of points to spend on getting another animal which works in a slightly different way, and then you can start the whole chain over again. It's actually a really engaging thing if you're up for it. The grind might put a bit of people off because to get the really good animals it takes a ton of resources, but at the same time it is a lot of fun going around doing missions and getting as far a generation forward as possible. So, you know, it is a little bit expensive, but if that's the sort of thing you like, then go for it. I do have a big video up on my channel if you need to make a decision on whether or not you want to buy this. Life of Pixel. This one was a little bit of a disappointment because the developer eventually bottomed out and couldn't get the money he needed to make Life of Pixel 2. But anyway, so this game is a two-dimensional platformer with some very simple mechanics. Basically, you collect all the tokens and get to the end. Where this game excels is its visual style. It copies, well, not so much copies, but invents new styles based around 8 old computers and video game consoles, all the way from the Atari 8-bits to the NES and the SNES and stuff like that. It's a really interesting looking platformer. Sure, the gameplay is simple, but it's at least challenging as well. It'll take you a couple of hours to get through everything, and there is a bunch of extra stuff to go do. But otherwise, it's still a fairly enjoyable platformer. I mean, look at this footage that I'm playing right now. Do you like the look of this? If you do, buy it. If you don't, avoid it. There you go. Haunt the House Terror Town. This is one of the very first games that came out, actually. Now, this is an interesting little thing. The idea is that you have to go around and scare people by inhabiting objects and doing spooky things with them. And you have to clear out the 4 particular houses. However, there are special people you can kill who get special ghosts. And so the idea is that you try and fly around scaring everyone as fast as possible. So it's basically a time attack game. I'm not that big of a fan of time attack games, but I know some people love them. And this game's art style and just atmosphere in general just oozes professional quality, and it's an absolutely lovely little time, even if it doesn't last that long if you're not a fan of repeating the game in order to get a faster time. Otherwise, though, it is worth at least a look at, and hopefully that footage in the background has given you a bit of a look at it. Neo Kicks. Now, this one actually came out at the very beginning of PlayStation Mobile and hasn't seen a price drop since because it's really expensive. However, I quite like this one because it's actually really unique for what it is. So the idea is you're this little dot, and you're constantly drawing a line behind you, and this line actually rotates the world under you, and you have to crush blocks and other shapes against the outside of the arena. It's a really little clever thing, and it's actually kind of hard to stay alive for longer than a few moments. So you have to be constantly rearranging your weight, trying to figure out exactly where you can go next. If you bump into anything, it'll push you towards the outside. So you have to be careful about where you go and what you decide to attack. It's actually a really little clever concept. If it was like $2, I would recommend it just outright. But $5.49, well, you know, just watch this video and decide if you actually like the look of it or not. And if you do, give it a look. Rebel, another one of the first games that came out at the very beginning of the service. The idea is that you are stuck on this island and you have no offensive weaponry, so you have to just be constantly dodging out of the way of the bullets that are fired at you and trying to get them to hit the other enemies. I know this concept's been done a million times in a million other places, but this is probably the best implementation I've seen on the PlayStation Vita at the very least. And there is a bunch of unlockable content, including 2 extra game modes and a bunch of extra power-ups to give the game a little bit more longevity. So it's well worth looking at. It's nice and cheap too, $2. Not that much to argue with, honestly. Grid Survivor. I actually did this video and I haven't uploaded it at the time this video will be going up, so you'll be a little bit surprised by this one, I imagine. But basically, this is a 50-cent game and it's a twin-stick shooter. But the difference between this and, say, Geometry Wars is that you've got this really unique braking and drifting mechanic where you're constantly going forward, but if you hold the brake button, you can drift and you can brake into different positions on the map. So the game is more of a game of learning how to dodge effectively through lots of hordes of enemies. I know Geometry Wars 3 is coming, so that's why I ended up picking this one up, but it actually turned out pretty good. I mean, without the drifting mechanic, it would be rather boring, but this little drifting mechanic adds a ton of depth to it because you need to be constantly learning how to dodge things. So if you like the look of this video, it's definitely worth a look. I mean, 50 cents is bloody cheap. Fat Dragons. Now, this guy, I cannot remember his name right now, but it'll be on the screen. This guy actually made a fair bunch of games on the store, but most of them were puzzle games, two-dimensional puzzle platformers that took about an hour each to solve, but I just picked his most gamey game here because, I mean, everything he's done is worth buying, and he's actually got it all on sale. But anyway, Fat Dragons is a Joust clone. That's pretty much all I have to say about it. The AI is a little bit whack sometimes, but the game is a fairly suitable Joust clone, and for 50 cents, I mean, sure, why not, right? Hermit Crabs in Space. This one was a bit of a strange one, but when you get used to it, it's really cool. So, you have a bunch of sectors to get to the end to, and you have this tiny ship. But the idea is you build your ship so that you can control it with the Vita's buttons, and then you start shooting at people. And you shoot at people, and you get to break off their parts and add them to your own ship. So you're constantly building up a new ship as you go along with different weapons and shield generators. And you make it through all the sectors, and then, well, that's basically it, really. It'll take you a couple of hours, and then you can always come back and play it again later if you get unlucky or if you feel like playing it again. So I actually like this one. I mean, it's got a really interesting mechanic, and it'll keep you going for a couple of hours. And for $2.79, that's not that bad of an ask, if you ask me. 60-second shooter deluxe. Now, this is a twin-stick shooter along the same lines of games like Geometry Wars. But the idea is that you've only got 60 seconds, and you're constantly going down different levels and unlocking new stuff as you go along. So the more score tokens you pick up, the more stuff you get. You get to go deeper, you get more enemies, you get more modes, you get to start from a deeper level. And it's entertaining for a few bursts at a time, and you'll probably get a fair few hours out of it with all the unlockables that are in there. So, yep, anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say about 60-second shooter. It's well worth a look at for $2.79. Super Crate Box. This was the big game they launched PlayStation Mobile with, a full-on port of the free-to-play PC game, and this port is actually pretty damn good. You are constantly moving about, the screen shakes a lot, you're collecting crates and shooting enemies, and it's a very, very hard game, and it's actually really engaging to try and get a high score on it because it's constantly moving and constantly changing the challenge by giving you different weapons and stuff. And of course, all the content from the PC version is here. It would be nice if it was a little bit cheaper, but I mean, $3.50 for Super Crate Box is a pretty fair ask, if you ask me. That game really shouldn't have been free. Nevertheless, well worth having a look at. Moose Sync. This is probably the best DJ Max button-based game that you're going to get on the Vita at this point in time. The game's got 30 songs, but you only get about 6 or 7 of them with the initial $6.49 purchase. However, if you wait until after September 10th, I think it was, I can't give you the exact date, but it's about the middle of September, you'll actually be able to unlock every song for free, no questions asked. So, 30 songs for $6.50 with hard modes and a 5-key and a 4-key mode. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with this one. It's well worth picking up, and the music in it is actually great as well. It's a Japanese-developed game, and it's got a lot of Japanese-style music and Chinese-style music. I think it's Chinese? It's Chinese or Japanese. Either way, it's still some really good music, and it's still worthwhile looking at. Pop Bugs Zap. Now, if you've played a game called OMG Zombies, this will sound familiar to you, but basically you've got a bunch of different bugs, and when you tap on them, they pop, and when they pop in different ways, and they shoot projectiles in different ways and directions. So you want to be tapping the right bug at the right time in order to get that to pop another bug, and then you just create a chain reaction. And this one has a really nice art style to it, and it's free. Like, it's absolutely free to download. Most of the microtransactions, actually all of the microtransactions, are based around basically just getting you more resources that you would be able to get by grinding otherwise. So, it's definitely a good deal, and you should go pick it up. I mean, it's free. Why not? Pickbox. This is a Picross game, but the interface is really, really well done. Like, amazingly well done. So, it's really easy just to look at the sides and see where all the numbers are. It's easy to just look at the board and see what you need to fill in. And the button controls and the touch controls all work really well. I got nothing else to say about it. It's well worth picking up. I don't remember how expensive this is. It's like 50 cents or something, like really, really cheap. Like, no idea. Like, you'll get everything in the game for under $1. Well worth the time. It's a lot better than that, what was it called, Sketch Cross? Unimar the Puzzle. This game actually came out on Vita native, but it was a free-to-play game with some really weird mechanics that I didn't like. This game just got pure match 3 chain and slide action in it. It's constantly dropping. You just match 3 or more, and then you get a higher quality block, and then you keep matching them, and you got to do it as fast as you can because the dungeoneer is constantly getting closer to the bottom of the dungeon. It's a lot of fun, and unfortunately this version is actually really expensive. But if you enjoyed the free-to-play version that came out on the Vita, but didn't like the fact that there was free-to-play elements, this is your game. Go get it. Gunhouse. This game was a bit strange as well. So basically, this is a sort of match sort of game. You make cubes out of a cannon on the right, and then you load these cannons into a cube on the left or on the right. And depending on whether you put them on the left or the right, you'll either get a cannon or you'll get a magic spell. And the idea is you have to be constantly defending yourself from a constantly incoming wave of terrors. And it's really engaging, really fast-paced, and it's currently gone down to 50 cents. So, Jesus Christ, how can you say no to that? That's a really good price for a really enjoyable game. Oh Dear Alpha, made by the same guys who made Gunhouse, so really convenient they're next to each other. But basically, this is an Outrun clone, but it's actually really, really good. It controls really well, and slamming into the deer in order to get speed boosts and trying to not run into anything so you can conserve fuel for the next stage is just a really, really nice experience, and it looks fantastic. It channels Outrun like crack cocaine channels Insanity. It is a wonderful little game, and it's definitely worth buying, at least to encourage the guys to make a full-on native Vita version. So go on, go buy it right now, you won't regret it. Switch Galaxy. Oh man, this one was a little bit of a disappointment when it came out natively on Vita. But basically, the idea with this one is that you're constantly racing through these multi-lane tracks, and you have to swap between them with the shoulder buttons. However, the speed gets absolutely ridiculous. It gets stupidly fast. And you have to beat every stage within a time limit. So you have to be constantly upgrading your ship, and you have to be avoiding obstacles. If you crash into too many, the time limit will run out, and you won't get to go on to the next stage, and you'll have to keep trying over and over again. The Vita version kind of got rid of what made the PlayStation Mobile version great, because they make you constantly reset your ship upgrades, and there's no time limit, so there's no reason to really get through the stages really quick. But this was a lot better. It's a ton better game. If you liked Switch Galaxy but thought, I'd like more of an emphasis on the speed, here you go. And it's pretty cheap as well. MBRE, made by Team Red Herring, who made a bunch of other shooters as well. But I just picked my favorite one out of the bunch here. They're all not bad, but this is my personal favorite. So the idea is you got a bunch of weapons and you go shoot a bunch of shit. My reason why this is my personal favorite, though, is despite the fact that its frame rate can tank unbelievably at points, I still quite like the visual flair and style of it, and having all the other weapons accessible at any time just to fire off the enemies. It just makes for a good shoot 'em up that I just enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot, and I do quite like it, and I really should say you should go take a look. If you're gonna buy any of these guys' games, this one's probably the one to get. Burra. I will defend this game till the end of time. It's really, really cheap, and it's got this really simple premise. You're being sucked down into a sauna, and you've got these cliff walls on the sides, and you've got all these dots that are slowly rising up, and you hook onto the dots and shoot in the opposite direction of the dots. And you can weave yourself in between bullets, or you can shoot bullets, and you have to shoot enemies, but if you hold onto a dot for too long, you'll go up and out of the screen, but you can't fall to the bottom either, so you're constantly just trying to spider monkey, I hate that word, spider monkey your way around all these dots, trying to avoid all these bullets and shooting all these things, and it's really, really difficult, and it's a lot of fun. It's something you should definitely pick up. It's extremely cheap, and it's really, really, really good for what it is. Ambition of the Slimes, one of the only actual strategy RPGs we saw on the PlayStation Mobile platform. And the idea is that you've got these slimes and you're trying to constantly overwrite the humans, and you're getting more party members as you go along, and the idea is you can actually overtake human members and use them to your advantage. So you can take over someone and then just force them in the middle and have everyone else kill them, or you can attempt to take over their entire army by drawing them in and then inhabiting them while they've got no chance to defend themselves. It's a really neat concept, and it looks like there's a bit of content in the game, so it probably will be worth that fairly expensive for PlayStation Mobile price, but it's really well produced and really well made, and it's actually got some 3D graphics that don't suck, so you know, pretty much any game on PlayStation Mobile that has that is probably well worth your time. A healer only lives twice. Now, this one was good. Now, here's the idea. You're a healer constantly behind this warrior, and this warrior is tanking damage for you. But the idea is you have to be making new supplies to help him. You have to be using your spells to heal him. You have to be collecting resources, and you have to be doing things like putting together health potions to heal him up. And it's a really clever thing, because you're constantly on your toes. You never know if someone's going to come out of nowhere and just beat the absolute bejesus out of you. It's a whole lot of fun. And it's actually gotten a massive price drop because PlayStation Mobile is closing, unfortunately. But, you know, this game's nice and cheap and it's well worth your time to pick up because it's actually a good time. Super Tank Poker. Now, I picked this one because it was a really, really interesting take on the Advance Wars style game. But basically, you're a tank, you've got a bunch of tanks, and you fight other tanks, and you put bets on poker hands as to how much damage you do. It's really, really strange concept, but it's another one of Thomas Hopper's games, and it's 50 cents. So I fully recommend picking this one up just for the pure insanity of putting those two sorts of games together. Fully enjoyed that. Okay, rimmed capsule. Now, I'm just going to have to say that this is probably a video from someone on the internet. I imagine I'm going to go take, like, Total Biscuits video or something, because I absolutely suck at this game. But anyway, here's the deal. You are a omnipotent space station creator, and you create your space stations out of Tetris blocks. You put these Tetris blocks together and they make a big station. You have your guys assigned to specific areas and they go and do specific jobs. So you can have them either going harvesting food for more members, or you can have them going and building stuff, or you can have them defending your base, and you have to expand out towards monoliths, research the monoliths, and survive for as long as possible. There are other objectives too, but I'll leave that for you to find out. Really, really good game. It all works on the touchscreen, so the control scheme is actually really well designed. It's a very simple game, but at the same time, it's very, very enjoyable. And it's got a lovely Zen-style soundtrack and graphical style to it, and I love it to bits. Really good game, you should give it a look. Well, that was it. Those are all the games that I would recommend you buy pretty much right off the bat. There are other games that I missed that are actually worth your time, or at the very least are worth a look, but that's why I got you to go scrolling through the entire store to see if there was anything worth your time. It is a really big shame that the PlayStation Mobile service is disappearing. None of these games are going to get updates anymore, mainly because they actually locked out the development assistance on the latest Vita firmware, which is really disappointing. But nevertheless, it's still a really good time. All of these games are still a really good time, and there are more games out there that are probably worth your attention. So please just go through the PlayStation Mobile store, have a look, see what you find. If there's anything that looks remotely interesting to you at all, then give it a decent chance, will ya? Because these games are due to go down in just over a week anyway, so you never know. And be sure to download all the games that you want that you might have deleted from your Vita accidentally, because you probably won't be able to. You can't actually go to the download list on PlayStation Mobile anymore. There's just nothing there. So don't try and download them through that. Browse through the store. Make sure you pick up all the games that you want. And that's pretty much it. So this has been Blue Maxima. Hope you enjoyed this little ramble of mine, and I'll see you all next time.